Welcome to this deep dive. We've got some seriously interesting stuff to dig into today about AI and humans, and kind of feels like we're standing on the edge of something massive. We're talking about creative robots, AI doctors, the whole shebang. So get ready, because we're about to figure out how to not just survive, but actually thrive in this wild new world.
It does feel like we're on the cusp of a new frontier, doesn't it? And the best part is these documents you've shared, they're like our guidebook, yeah, helping us map out not just what AI will be, but what we want our future with it to look like.
Absolutely. So one of the things that really struck me early on was this basic difference between how AI thinks and how we do. It's like AI is all about the data. Like it just wants to crunch numbers and optimize, optimize, optimize. But us humans, we run on intuition, on gut feelings, on that spark of creativity that you can't just program.
It's almost like comparing a supercomputer to a painter. The supercomputer can analyze millions of colors and brush strokes, all those techniques. But a human painter, they bring something else entirely. That intangible spark of human emotion, the experience that makes art really resonate with us.
Right, like the magic touch you just can't replicate with code. And, the source material actually gives a really fascinating example of this with AI in healthcare. I mean, it's mind-blowing that AI can analyze a patient's entire medical history in seconds now, spotting things a human doctor might miss, those hidden patterns.
And the really interesting thing here is that the AI isn't replacing doctors, not at all. It's more like it's giving them a superpower. Imagine being a doctor who walks into a room already armed with this incredibly detailed analysis of the patient's health, right? It frees them up to do what humans do best, connecting with the patient, really understanding their worries, and then making those critical judgment calls that need empathy, that gut feeling.
It's like AI is augmenting us, making us better at what we do, which I love. And that leads us to this idea of collaboration. It's not humans versus AI, it's humans with AI, figuring out how to work together.
Exactly. It's all about finding those sweet spots where our strengths complement each other. Like imagine a super complex engineering project. AI can handle those massive calculations, the simulations, all that, leaving the human engineers to focus on the design, the creative problem solving, and, ultimately making sure that whatever they're building truly benefits people.
I'm already seeing this play out in so many different fields. It's pretty amazing. And this is where it gets really interesting for everyone listening, too. Think about your own work for a second.
Yeah.
What are those tasks you do, maybe day in and day out, that are just tedious, the repetitive stuff? Imagine what you could achieve if AI took those off your plate. All that time freed up so you could focus on the things that humans excel at, the strategy, the creativity, those human-centered aspects of your job.
Now that's an exciting thought, isn't it? And the source material takes it even a step further. It highlights these specific skills that are going to be crucial in this AI-driven future that's coming. We're talking about things like creativity, adaptability, emotional intelligence, that ability to think critically. These aren't just buzzwords. They're the skills that are really going to set us apart as AI gets more and more advanced.
And the source makes it clear this isn't about waiting around for the future to just happen to us. It's about actively honing these skills now, no matter where you are in your career. Whether you're just starting out or you're a seasoned pro, ask yourself, how can I push myself to become more adaptable, more emotionally intelligent, a better critical thinker? Those are the questions we need to be asking.
It's all about embracing this idea of lifelong learning, right? Recognizing that the world's not slowing down, it's speeding up. Our ability to adapt, to learn new things, to grow, well, that's going to be our greatest strength in this rapidly changing world.
So we've talked about how AI and humans excel in different areas, but there's this one question I just can't shake, and I'm sure some of our listeners are wondering the same thing. Can AI ever truly replicate human empathy? Can it learn to be creative like us? The source seems to suggest it's not likely, at least not anytime soon. What do you think about that?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Can you really, teach a machine to feel, to grasp those uniquely human experiences, those emotions? The source material seems to think that while AI might be able to mimic certain things, like, write text that seems empathetic or even compose music that pulls at your heartstrings, it's still missing that essential ingredient. It doesn't have that lived human experience to draw from.
So you're saying AI can't really get what it means to feel joy or sorrow or that burst of inspiration because it hasn't actually gone through those things itself.
Exactly. It's like, think about the difference between reading about love in a book and actually falling in love. The book can give you the information, the theory, maybe even some beautiful words to describe it, but it can't replicate that raw, visceral experience of actually feeling those emotions.
That makes sense. But it does make you think about all those sci-fi movies like Her or Ex Machina, where AI seems to develop these incredibly complex emotions. Are those scenarios totally impossible, or are we just getting ahead of ourselves? What does the source material say about this?
It's interesting you mention those films because the source material actually talks about them too. It argues that even though they're fictional, they tap into some very real anxieties we have about AI, that fear of losing control, of depending too much on technology, of blurring those lines between what's human and what's machine.
And it's not just sci-fi writers who are thinking about these things. I mean, even classic literature like Frankenstein wrestled with those ethical dilemmas, right? Creating something more intelligent than us. What does that mean?
Exactly. These stories, whether they were written yesterday or centuries ago, they all reflect this very human concern. What does it mean to create? And what responsibility do we have toward what we create, especially as those creations become more powerful, more independent?
Kind of mind-blowing, isn't it? A little exciting, a little scary. Like we have this incredible tool, AI, and it has the potential to solve some of our biggest problems. But we also have to make sure we're not creating something that ends up hurting us or,
Yeah.
diminishing what makes us human in the first place.
And that takes us to a really critical point that the source emphasizes: ethical considerations in AI development. It's not enough to just build powerful AI, right? We need to make sure that it's used responsibly, transparently, in a way that benefits everyone.
So it's not just on the programmers, the engineers, it's all of us, right? Thinking critically about the implications, making sure AI is used for good. But how do we even begin to do that? Where do we start?
Well, the source material suggests that it starts with awareness. We need to educate ourselves about AI, how it works, what it's good at, and where its limitations are.
So no more burying our heads in the sand. We need to lean into this, learn about AI, be part of the conversation.
Exactly. The more we understand about AI, the better we can ask the right questions. We can demand transparency from the people developing it and advocate for policies that make sure it's used ethically and responsibly.
It's about taking ownership, isn't it? Not just sitting back and letting AI happen to us, but actively shaping how this technology develops, how it becomes part of our lives. Speaking of which, the source material dives into something I know a lot of people are curious and maybe a little worried about: the future of work.
Yeah.
How is AI going to change the way we work? What does it mean for our jobs?
That's the big question everyone's asking, right? And the source material doesn't sugarcoat it. It acknowledges that AI is going to shake things up in the job market, no doubt. But it doesn't see it as a purely negative thing either. It offers a more, shall we say, nuanced perspective.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What's the nuanced take?
It suggests that while AI will automate certain jobs, which is unavoidable, it's also going to create brand new industries and jobs, things we can't even imagine right now.
It's like trying to describe the internet back when we were all still using dial-up, right? You knew something big was coming, but you couldn't have predicted how much it would change everything.
Precisely. And just like the internet created tons of new jobs, AI will too. But here's where it gets interesting. The source predicts that the jobs of the future, they're going to require those uniquely human skills that we were talking about earlier: creativity, critical thinking, emotional intelligence, and being able to adapt to a rapidly changing world.
So those aren't just nice to haves anymore. They're essential. The keys to succeeding in an AI-driven world.
Absolutely. Think about it. AI might be able to crunch numbers and generate reports faster than any human, but can it build relationships? Can it inspire a team? Can it deal with complex ethical situations? Those are things that require a human touch.
Right, which takes us back to that healthcare example. AI can be incredibly helpful in making diagnoses, but you still need that human doctor to connect with the patient, offer compassion, make those tough calls.
Exactly. It all comes down to understanding what we're good at, focusing on the areas where human ingenuity and empathy are irreplaceable.
So we don't need to be afraid of the robot takeover. We need to figure out how to work with AI, use our strengths together to build a better future for everyone.
Now you're getting it. And the source material paints this really compelling picture of what that future could look like. It talks about a world where work is less about those mundane, repetitive tasks and more about purpose-driven work. Imagine AI freeing us from the daily grind so we can focus on creative problem solving, innovation, things that matter, building a more just and equitable world.
So that's a future I can get behind. But it does make you wonder, if AI takes over all the tedious stuff, what happens to that very human need to explore, to discover? Do we risk becoming too dependent on AI to the point where it stifles our own curiosity, our creativity?
It is a bit of a paradox, isn't it? AI could be this amazing tool that unlocks even more creativity, or it could become something we lean on too much? Like it all comes down to how we decide to use it, I think.
Yeah, it's like having access to a library, but like infinitely bigger.
Yeah.
Amazing resource, right?
Yeah.
But if you let it do all the thinking for you, you're never going to come up with your own ideas or ask those what if questions that lead to, well, everything new.
Finding that balance, that's the key. We can and should use AI for research to analyze things, even for a spark of inspiration sometimes. But it can't ever replace our own curiosity, that drive to figure things out for ourselves.
The source material actually makes a really interesting comparison. It says AI is like this powerful telescope. We can see further, dig deeper into all this knowledge, more than ever before. But, and this is important, we still have to be the ones looking through that telescope. We're the ones who have to interpret what we're seeing, ask those big questions, the ones that push humanity forward.
And here's something cool. AI can even help us ask those questions. I think about it. It can sift through mountains of data, spot patterns we might miss. That could point us in new directions for research or help us see things from a totally new angle, challenge what we thought we knew.
It's like having a sparring partner for your brain, someone who pushes you to think outside the box, consider all these different perspectives.
Yes. It's about having this collaborative relationship with AI, where we challenge each other, learn from each other, and hopefully push those boundaries of knowledge and creativity further than we ever could on our own.
It's an amazing opportunity, no doubt. But we've also got to be aware of the responsibility that comes with it.
Yeah.
We can't just let AI develop unchecked. We have to think it through, make sure we're using it in a way that aligns with what we value, what's good for all of us.
And that leads right into what the source material calls our ethical imperative. The more powerful AI gets, the more we need to make sure we've got solid ethical guidelines in place for how we develop it, how we use it, everything.
So it's not just about avoiding those doomsday scenarios, the sci-fi stuff where AI goes rogue. It's about being proactive,
Yeah.
making sure that how we build AI, how it develops, that it reflects our values as a society, the kind of world we want to live in.
Exactly. We need to be asking ourselves, what kind of future do we want AI to help us create? Where do we draw the line? What about things like fairness, transparency, accountability? These aren't just abstract ideas, they have to be baked into the process from the ground up. And the time to be having these conversations is now, while we're still in the early stages.
And those conversations, they shouldn't just be happening in Silicon Valley or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
This is for everyone, whether you're a student, an artist, an entrepreneur, whoever. If you're curious about the future, you've got a role to play in figuring out how AI shapes our world.
Absolutely. Stay informed, talk about it, and don't be afraid to speak up because the future of AI, it's not some predetermined thing, like it's set in stone. We're all writing this story together right now.
That's a great point to end on. This deep dive has been amazing, really eye-opening. We've gone from the nitty-gritty of how AI works to these huge questions about what it even means to be human in a world that's changing so fast. If there's one thing I hope our listeners take away from this, it's that the future of AI, it's not written yet. We're writing it right now. And every single one of us has a say in what that story is going to be.
Well said. And what we've learned today is that if we stay curious, if we figure out how to collaborate with AI instead of fearing it, and if we never forget about those ethical considerations, well, who knows what we can achieve? We can use this technology to help everyone reach their full potential as individuals and as a society.
That's a hopeful thought. And I think everyone listening could use a little optimism right now, especially after a topic this big. But as always, the conversation doesn't end when we stop recording. Keep those questions coming, keep exploring, keep learning, and until next time.